Hi, my name is Jonathan David Shepard. I wrote a chapbook called Omnirus. I would like to discuss the fourth poem, Sparks from the Dusky Fire. So this is the fourth poem in the chapbook. Let's just start out just by reading it, and then I'll dive into my notes, the techniques I used, and there's a lot of references in this one, so I'll explain all of those. If I could create the perfect poem, it might absolve my sins like water poured. Some water in this wood gave it shadows, and the night dim complemented the sparks. My friends and I around hell's window drank Wisconsin brews and talked of work and life, ironic for a scene so apt to death. A woman there I didn't know, brown-haired and dusk cozy in a hooded sweater. But something wicked this way came to me, to see pernicious blazes in her eyes. "That's Tara," said my friend, unasked and low. All but us were no more. Then our eyes, mine with longing, met, and she, softly raging, smiled. Stood she up in fire, with Gothic passion, with me so entranced. She spoke of things darkly, high and screeching. Fair is foul, and foul is fair, when men thirst for blood and power, and women are wicked. You will have blood, and how? The ghosts do not. Depart, and madness grips your wearied eyes. You try with terrible might to build one perfect city, yet it is the pure who pay your prices. Your plight to all impress, ideals on the material, you dark child. Revel in your genius, you gamesman, barely view who you skewer, as voices swell, tossing knight and castle and queen away. The cold killer smiles from America. Subsumed, obsessed with thoughts of just yourself. Your music clever riddles in the night. Your contemplations verse across the board. But all your fallen fruits are naught but sleep. Tonight when torrent blows and the moon sways, and dark riders glisten, nearing the dead, all the night some harbingers, cruel ghosts, when memories belong so far below. When the body of a rock is broken, he does not fear his death, though darkly saint and sin blaspheme by hoist inverted. But dying, all you do is understand. At this I stood and joined her in the fire, feeling not my legs the logs they then were, my tears dry and boiling hot and salt clean. I reached out and felt some woman or smoke, most unclear as I drew my lips closer. She wasn't there, Tara, but please tell me, did we ever truly touch? Oh, tell me, do I stand in dusky blazes in vain? So that's the poem. So let's just dive right into it. Big picture, a pretty hooded girl at a campfire, like just a small social gathering of people around a campfire drinking beer, having a good time. She steps into the fire. So there's a turn there where everybody else vanishes, whether metaphorically or literally. And it's just the speaker and the girl whose name is Tara. She makes several references to several different fields of art, science, whatever. Those works that have some renown to them, that have themes in common with Omnirus as a whole. So I guess it started out, I wanted to give some validity to Omnirus, some precedent to all the different themes that I'm touching on. This poem follows Oblivion And then here we find obsession again. Humans are likened to trees, which is wood. So just starting out with those first few lines, humans are likened to trees in scripture, so wood, but also are mostly water. By science, we know, the chemical makeup of the human body is mostly water. So setting wet wood on fire casts its shadows. So some water in this wood gave it shadows. The meter of this is loose iambs in pentameter. The first reference, and I actually refer to it before Tara starts speaking, something wicked this way came to me, and also when she starts talking and it says fair is foul and foul is fair, those are references to Macbeth by Shakespeare, which I had the good fortune of going to a Shakespeare festival while I was in the middle of this project, and it was my first encounter with Macbeth, and it's just so good. But, well, I mean, it kind of goes without saying it's Shakespeare, right? And it shared a lot of themes, I thought, with Omnerus, so I included that as a reference that Tara mentions. The next reference is classical philosophy, summed up as a Tower of Babel attempt. Idealism in the Platonic sense. So one of the concepts that Plato kind of put out there was this idea that there's the material world, but there's also a place of ideals, and that the reality we experience is kind of like ideals that have impressed upon the material. So like there's an idea of a lamp. There's a perfect idea of a lamp, and that idea is impressed upon physical matter such that we have a lamp. Any imperfection that is in that lamp is the result of impressing it upon the material. So that's where the line comes from. Impress your ideals on the material, you dark child. And it's also kind of a sweeping criticism of classical philosophy as a whole, to impress ideals on the material to try to create a perfect city. The next reference is the Opera House chess game between Morphy and, I don't have in my notes who he was playing with. There was this chess giant, just behemoth, Paul Morphy. He played one of the most famous games of all time. They were in an opera house, and while the show was going on, I presume, Paul Morphy had an absolutely brilliant combination over the board where he skewered and he sacrificed all his pieces, and then he won the game. He was American, so the cold killer smiles from America is a reference to Paul Morphy, who was American. The next reference is Chopin, his Nocturnes. I just gave it a stanza because a lot of those pieces of music just felt right for Omnerus. So Chopin's Nocturnes. And then poetry. So these are all different kind of spheres that have expression that shares themes with Omnerus. So I also include a poem, The Highwayman, by Alfred Noyes. And it's very disarmingly dark and raw. It's just a great poem. I have a little pocketbook of poetry that I got from Barnes & Noble, and that included that as one of like the most important poems to include in a pocketbook of poetry. Go read it if you like creepy poetry. And the last reference is probably the most dense in terms of its thematic relevance to Omnerus. The Crucifixion of St. Peter, 1601, by Caravaggio. Upon this rock I'll build my church. That's Matthew 16, verse 18. So it's the crucifixion of St. Peter. Peter the rock upon which Christ will build his church, when the body of a rock is broken. So St. Peter in this painting is about to be crucified upside down. And the look on his face is kind of alert, but it's not really afraid. Like he's about to die, and he's very present in the moment, but he's not afraid. He's only like, he's got kind of an honest amount of concern for his circumstance and for what people are doing to him. but dying, all you do is understand. That's where that line comes from. Saint in sin, blaspheme by hoist inverted. Saint Peter and the being crucified upside down is blasphemous, so blaspheme by hoist inverted. That stanza, it's kind of like the understanding of humanity's dark necessities and bloodlust is kind of part of what's expressed on St. Peter's face in that image. It kind of looks at Omnirus as a whole to say that, like, St. Peter understands that people have these dark necessities. St. Peter, as an example of one of the heroes of Omnirus, is not afraid of the darker themes and the fact that they have their place in the human experience. And the last line, after the speaker stands up and steps into the fire to join Tara, and he reaches out to touch her, and he doesn't know if he touches smoke or if he touches her. The last line, "Do I stand in dusky blazes in vain?" is a continuation of "We came to touch oblivion. Did I really touch it? Did I actually reach it? Did I touch the dark core of this thing?" Whew, okay, so yeah, those are my notes on Sparks from the Dusky Fire. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.